West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
I love you, man.
God help us.
I want to bless him. We need all the help we can get.
Now here's Jeff Hunt and Bill Thorpe. The Jeff and Bill Show on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Six a.m. in the Mile High City on this Thursday, June 7th, 2025. Good morning, Denver, Colorado. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. A brewing battle within the FDA. The former chief medical officer asked to step down. Now the FDA wants him back. Who is this guy? The Wall Street Journal saying that the former chief medical officer of the FDA, who came in under the Trump administration, is actually just Bernie Sanders' acolyte in Maha drag. Wall Street Journal headline. We're going to give you the latest on this and some insight into what's happening with the Trump administration, the FDA, Robert F. Kennedy, and the rest. This is going to be something you hear nowhere else. This is a brewing battle within the Trump administration. We're going to give you the latest on that coming up here in just a few minutes. Barb Kirkmeyer joining us in the 7 o'clock hour. Governor Jared Polis calling a special session. We ain't got no money, honey, he says, as the state faces a $1.2 billion budget deficit as a result of changes coming from federal tax law as a result of the big, beautiful bill. So what is Colorado to do and who is to blame? We're going to talk with the top Republican senator on the Joint Budget Committee here during the 7 o'clock hour. 8 o'clock, Christy Burton Brown, Executive Vice President of Advance Colorado, one of the chief defenders of Tabor, will tell us, is it really the Taxpayer Bill of Rights that's to blame? Probably not. Government spending coming from the Democrats, but Democrats saying we would have plenty of money to improve your life if it wasn't for that pesky Tabor in the Constitution. We'll talk with Christy Burton Brown, the 8 o'clock hour. And then Heather Galen, Director of Marketing Communications with Denver, South Metro Denver Chamber, will be joining us to give us an update on the 2025 annual Women in Business Conference that will be coming to the South Metro area. So, whole lot to talk about today. Now is time, though, for news and comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, news and comment.
Good morning. It is Thursday, 66 and relatively clear. Clouds here and there. Beautiful as the sun rises. Expecting a high of 97 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, Governor Polis authorizes mobilization of the National Guard to support fire crews battling blazes in northwestern Colorado. Eric Coulter with the Rocky Mountain Complex Incident Management Team reported late Wednesday that containment efforts are not going well.
The containment efforts are not going well.
Everything's lost. I don't know where it is.
Significant growth from the Lee fire, really high temps, dry, hot, low relative humidity, pretty good winds. The fire did cross Highway 13 coming south out of Meeker.
I think Jeff and I have better sound clips.
I think you do. You definitely have you have better microphones.
The fire's coming!
Run away!
Honestly, Bill, the second one, I had no idea that was you.
Thank you.
And I'm looking at the computer going, oh my God, what was that? Where was that coming from?
No, I appreciate that. Thank you.
That was really well done.
I appreciate it.
You both have much better microphones as well. Let's listen to them one more time.
We saw significant growth from the Lee fire, really high temps, dry, hot, low relative humidity, pretty good winds. The fire did cross Highway 13 coming south out of Meeker.
Yeah, it sounds like he's coming off his computer microphone. But the Guard will support fire crews as they attempt to contain the Lee and Elk fires burning in Rio Blanco County. The nearby town of Meeker is on pre-evacuation status while the surrounding areas have been ordered to evacuate. Polis has ordered a special session to address a projected $1.2 billion budget shortfall linked, they say, to federal funding costs. Lawmakers are drafting proposals that could scale back programs like SNAP, Medicaid, and child tax credits. Republicans blame the crisis on overspending. Yes, the General Assembly is back at the Capitol on August 21st. Five soldiers.
Can I just remind people real quick, because we're going to get into this a lot in the 7 and 8 o'clock hour. We're facing a $1.2 billion budget shortfall. It wasn't 2 weeks ago, my friends.
That's right.
The Jarhead Polis, governor of Colorado, wanted to spend $28 million on a bridge to nowhere. And when I say Jarhead Polis, people go, "You're demeaning Marines." I apologize for that. But every time I look at Jared, it just comes right into my mind.
Yep, I'm right there with you.
Dude was fine.
Yep.
$28 million. On a bridge to nowhere 2 weeks ago. Now, speaking of fires,
bridge.
The house is burning down. We have no money to spend. Republicans.
Those Republicans, there's like 3 of them up here. God. 5 soldiers are recovering after the shooting at Fort Stewart in Georgia. The suspected gunman, an active duty military member, was taken into custody. Sergeant Cornelius Radford was stationed at the base and ended up being subdued by fellow soldiers, thankfully. Sounds like he used his own gun and not a military-issued weapon. DJT may meet with Russian President Putin as early as next week. 47 has been pushing Russia for a ceasefire in Ukraine. The location of the potential meeting has not yet been disclosed.
How to respond to the Epstein situation?
Is he working on what?
Is he hosting some kind of gathering of top advisors this evening to talk about how to respond to the Epstein situation?
I don't know. I could ask you that question.
So a reporter asked DJT about if Vice President Vance was going to have a special meeting to handle how to handle Epstein, and J.D. Vance was off to the left of Trump.
I don't know of it, but I think here's the man right here.
I saw it reported today, and it's completely fake news. We're not.
He says it's completely fake news.
We need to talk about the Epstein situation, and I think the reporter who reported it needs to get better sources.
Look, the whole thing is a hoax. It's put out by the Democrats.
Okay, so DJT says it's a hoax, but actually it may not be a bad idea, honestly, to have a meeting to talk about how they're going to handle this from here on out, because it is not going away anytime soon. Authorities are launching an investigation after a bomb threat forces the evacuation of hundreds from a St. Charles, Illinois hotel where the Texas Democrats are staying, those knuckleheads who've left the state. Police say no explosives were found at the Q Center, but the threat disrupted the group's stay as they attempted to block a GOP-led redistricting plan. I think Jesse Smollett did it. actually. I think he still lives in Illinois. 47 sweeping new tariffs went into effect overnight, raising import taxes to levels not seen in nearly a century. General Flynn has been saying this for a while, but said it again on Wednesday on with Steve Bannon.
Steve, you can go back to interviews that I did like the next day and the following week after October 7th in multiple broad alternative media where I said something went wrong because, Steve, I have personally walked that border. I have been down at those areas, and I know the details of how the Israelis, one of the most secure borders in the world, how they do their operations. So I know that. So something broke down, and it wasn't because of mistakes. So that's number one. This internal machinations that are going on right now, what's going to have to happen? They're going to have to come to grips with this because I'm going to tell you, the American people, they're getting tired of it. They're getting tired of this constant, Israel. I mean, I'm the biggest fan. I would, I have been to Israel many times. I have, served alongside them. I have done things with them, certainly on the intelligence side. So I'm their biggest fan. But the American people are not. And the American people are so tired of all of the craziness.
So he says that there's potential that there was they were ordered to stand down on October 7th. What that is all about, I'm sure we'll find out. And plenty of speculation out there, but a big, big story. Blue Jays embarrassed the Rockies 20-1. Broncos training camp continues Saturday once again at the Niners for the first preseason game. And Shedeur Sanders will start Friday for the Browns. He's fourth on the depth chart at quarterback for Cleveland, so this is a chance for him to try and impress the coaches. 65 in Lone Tree, 64 in Broomfield, 66 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. It is Thursday. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Your day weather forecast for the Denver metro area calls for a warm morning. That'll give us a good head start to another very hot day here around the metro area and region, flirting with the century mark and record highs today. Heat advisories in effect from 10 a.m. this morning to 7 p.m. this evening. Mid-60s tonight. Hazy, smoky skies again Friday. Highs near 100. Weather is a service of L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. I'm meteorologist Mark Huer in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Is there a brewing battle within the FDA? This is fascinating. This is something that I think we're out ahead of, and you're only going to hear it this morning on the Jeff and Bill Show. Headline coming out of Bloomberg. Okay, FDA chief says he wants gene therapy head Prasad to return. This was yesterday. Okay, what is happening? Who is this chief medical officer within the FDA? How did he get this far? Why do they want him back? Why did he leave? What is the insight here? All right. So we're piecing this together. This is ahead of the big news cycle, but it matters. All right. Vinay Prasad was the chief medical officer of the FDA. Okay. Came in just a few months ago, about 3 months ago. Here's the headline from the Wall Street Journal, confused as to why he ever even got the job in the first place. Okay. Vinay Prasad is Bernie Sanders' acolyte in Maha Drag, a top FDA appointee who doesn't think patients can be trusted to make their own health decisions. Meet Vinay Prasad, they write, a young disciple of Bernie Sanders, who ranks as one of the most powerful officials in the federal government. He determines whether patients get access to many life-saving medicines or not. Think of him as a one-man death panel. Dr. Prasad was named by Marty Makary, the Food and Drug Administration Commissioner, as the head of the agency's Biologics Division in May, and last month as its Chief Medical and Scientific Officer. More on why he was tapped to these posts later, they write, but it isn't an exaggeration to say that Dr. Prasad wields more power than Anthony Fauci ever did at the National Institute of Health. Like Dr. Fauci, Dr. Prasad thinks he knows what's best for people and that it's government's job to make it happen. I favor a strong regulatory state, he profoundly professes. Just like Dr. Fauci slowed experimental HIV treatments during the 1980s by rigidly adhering to strict trial protocols. Dr. Prasad is now scuttling potentially life-saving therapies. In recent weeks, the FDA has rejected 3 therapies for debilitating diseases that have shown promise in clinical trials. The agency has also forced off the market a gene therapy that can slow the degenerative loss of muscular function in young boys with certain genetic mutations. Behold, America's strong and arbitrary regulatory state at work. They write, if you read Dr. Prasad's paper or follow his Smash Mouth Substack or X.com feeds, the FDA's recent actions are no surprise. Dr. Prasad has long criticized the FDA for approving too many treatments that, in his view, provide only marginal benefits. He's also lambasted President Trump's first term right to try law, which lets terminally ill patients try experimental drugs not yet approved by the FDA. So why was he there in the first place? Well, in part, he criticized the FDA when it came to COVID-19 vaccinations. And that's pretty much the only reason why. Yes, he's got a storied career. Yes, he's got academic credentials, those types of things. But to get past the vetting process and to get the job as the chief medical officer of the FDA when you oppose Trump's right to try law is shocking in itself. It gets much, much worse. He is a big lib. Okay? He has great admiration for far left figures like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, saying that in a tweet, I'm a political liberal, closest to Elizabeth Warren. I am a Sanders-Warren liberal, he writes in another tweet. He is pro-choice and says that with Democrats, he aligns with them on abortion. Now, I want to just remind people what we in Colorado have had to deal with regards to Democrats and where they align on abortion. Okay? In Colorado, you have totally unrestricted abortion at any point, for any time, for whatever reason. Even moments before birth, you don't like the fact you're having a girl, we can kill the child. That's Democrat position in Colorado. And it goes further. We're going to enshrine it in the Constitution, and we're going to force taxpayers to pay for it. So that's the Democrat policy on abortion. unrestricted, any point, anytime, for whatever reason, and taxpayers are going to pay for it, and we're going to enshrine it in the Constitution. They are abortion absolutists. They're abortion extremists. And the chief medical officer under the Trump administration supports that. Goes on to say that he believes that abortion is health care. Now, from my perspective, Bill, Donald Trump, one of the most pro-life presidents in American history, if not the most pro-life president in American history, brought down Roe v. Wade. That has led to the saving of tens of thousands of human lives. His chief medical officer is Bernie Sanders, lib, through and through, gets one thing with conservatives, generally right? The suspicion over the FDA approval protocols for COVID-19 vaccinations. But on everything else, he's a dyed-in-the-wool, progressive, socialist, liberal, becomes the chief medical officer of the FDA. If you cannot, as a doctor, I've always looked at this, if you cannot get the most basic fundamental thing right of when human life begins, which is at conception, if you can't get that right, everything else, from my perspective, falls apart. That's the foundation. This guy was in charge of approving drugs, not only for people born and outside the womb, but for children still in the womb, did not believe that they were human beings, did not support the sanctity of life. This guy should have never been in the position he was in the first place. This is a failure of the vetting process. And the fact that the FDA is even thinking of bringing this guy back, that some in there are going, hey, well, let's get him back in, is a travesty. They shouldn't bring him back. He's better fit for progressive administrations. The president should be able to trust that the person in that position is going to advance his agenda, whether it's on sanctity of life, whether it's on right to try, those types of things. And to be in such a progressive position was a travesty to even begin with. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, first, I'm not certain I agree with you on handing Trump this moniker of being so pro-life. And the reason, Roe versus Wade's overturned, but where's that federal anti-abortion law? He wouldn't support it. He said he wouldn't. He talked about kicking it back to the states. If you're really, truly holding the position that you do, Jeff, he would propose a national, federal abortion law.
If he was with me. But my moniker was he's the most pro-life president we've had. I don't know another president, though, that would have supported a national pro-life ban.
I think the thing is, you're saying that he's the most pro-life simply because of Roe versus Wade. I would say that if we would go back to their hard-held positions, and again, this isn't really a debate for right now, that we could go through the Bushes, we could go through Reagan. There's a list of people that I think that if we took a test would fall to be more pro-life than Donald Trump. He does get credit for overturning Roe versus Wade, but before we anoint him and give him the crown of being so pro-life, understand he's not pushing a federal law on it.
Help me understand, and they did make achievements, right? You had the late-term abortion ban that took place under Bush, not dismissing that, okay? But with regards to policy achievements, the defunding of Planned Parenthood, the rescinding of the Mexico City policy, or the re-implementation of the Mexico City policy, or I forget either, whatever stops us from continuing to spend money on abortions in other countries. And then the judges he's been willing to stand by that led to the overturning of Roe v. Wade. When it comes to policy achievements, no other Republican got what Donald Trump did with regards to the sanctity of life.
Yeah, and that's fair based on policy achievements, sure. But before we anoint him as being this, scion defender of it, some of that is utilitarian for him, and some of it, because again,
that's politics.
And he has also been pro-abortion before he was anti-abortion.
Correct.
So he hasn't been a pure believer. If we would roll back the clock 15 years, he might share publicly some ideas that this doctor is sharing as well. Again, he was a registered Democrat before he was Republican. In fact, he registered to a lot of other parties, including some independent parties, and ran as president there. So I caution the idea that anointing him as this great pro-life defender. But looking at that one, yeah, sure, this is a somewhat of a failure of the vetting. But, he thinks there's too many treatments. That is in line with what happens inside of MAGA and what happens inside of the FDA. That's what RFK Jr. is talking about. He pushes back on some vaccines, even if politically outside of some of the medical fields that he sits more closely to Bernie Sanders. I don't see why he couldn't necessarily work inside of this job, because he does reflect much of the vaccine and other skepticism that MAGA has. So there are times in which he does seem to, and what I'm worried about this is that we're creating a purity test, that if you don't agree with me on, let's say, here like the FDA, if he doesn't agree with the right of free speech, or he disagrees with you on the Second Amendment, he can't have this job in the FDA. Not necessarily applicable. The individual doctor's opinion on the Second Amendment isn't necessarily applicable to the job going on inside of the FDA. The individual, his ideas on tax policy or his ideas on individual, not necessarily applicable into the job of the FDA. What I'm worried about is that we are not going to be trying to hire people that are competent at the job. We need to hire political toadies first and then worry about competency. And I've seen that in many administrations, and it's a variety of different things, and that's what I'm worried about. I want to see that he doesn't have the ability to do this job that they're setting him up for. And so far, I mean, he seems to align on medicine, vaccines, on a number of things with what, Maha and MAGA's looking for on this one. It's just weird that because he aligns politically in this, that he can't possibly have the job. So what we're doing is, do we need to then have for every possible job in the government, is there a political test that has to be done first? That's what I'm worried about.
On appointed positions?
That's what I'm worried about.
That's the way it's set up.
Yeah.
Right? Do you expect Barack Obama to hire somebody that's pro-life and is going to advance pro-life beliefs and philosophies in their role as a chief medical officer?
Well, here's the thing: is I understand the idea of the pro-life per se, but is that really just the reason here? Is it just if he wasn't pro-life, would he be okay? Or if he wasn't pro-abortion, would he be okay? That's what I'm looking at. Is it just this issue with you that the person in this position has to align with being...
For me?
Yeah.
That is
pro-life?
That is an absolute disqualifier. Okay. So if you cannot, as a doctor, this has always blown my mind, right? Because look at and we've had him on the show before.
Yeah.
The head of the Democrats for Life here in Colorado is a physician, right? So he's a Democrat through and through, believes that you should use the power of government in order to protect the most vulnerable. That is our role, whether it's through Medicare, Medicaid, that type of thing. And so the sanctity of life continues right into, or caring for the most vulnerable continues right into the sanctity of life issue for him. It has been shocking to me to watch the medical industry, right? The medical establishment, doctors, those types of people who are trained, right, to take a Hippocratic oath, to do no harm, to then support policies and beliefs that result in the direct execution of a human being. We know when life begins. Doctors,
do we?
Yes.
When does life
begin? At the
begin?
moment of conception.
But is that religion or is that science?
No, science. Look it up in science textbooks. I talk with people down there. When does life begin? When do the textbooks say it begins? They say it begins at the moment of conception because there's no other way to define it. When else do you define it? If you believe that life begins once a breath takes place, why are we doing prenatal surgeries?
So you disagree with our Jewish brothers and sisters? You think they've got it wrong?
Oh, 100%. If those particular ones, and I'm not saying all of Judaism, but some Jews who believe that it begins at the moment you take a breath.
But that's outlined in their religion.
Of course.
That's the
Well,
that's
they're
the
wrong.
guide.
There's lots of religions that are wrong, Bill.
I know, but it could be fair that someone that doesn't share our same Christian faith could say the Christians are wrong on their idea of life beginning at conception.
So let's debate it. Let's debate it. If life begins when you take a breath, then, I mean, there's a ton of consequences that come from that belief, right? The reason, and let's say protecting a life in the womb legally. If a woman dies as a result of a murder, does the murderer kill two people or one person?
Depends on how you define them, and I think that's kind of the problem, is how we're defining when life begins. And in part, this is the problem that I have.
Why not just say one?
Well, here's the problem that I've got is this: is that when we go back to the idea of life beginning at conception, we know that God our Father has designed the human body to slough off some of those embryos. That we know that the human body does not always implant a fertilized egg into the uterus.
Correct.
So the human body then would be designed, as you said, for death, because the human body's making the choice to.
So your argument is
it.
because death happens, it's intended?
No,
so someone dies of a heart attack?
No, what I'm asking is the idea is, so you say that life begins at conception, and if that's the idea, more of the fertilized eggs end up not implanting in the uterus, from my understanding, than those that are. Many times you don't have them, and the body they reject them for a variety of reasons. And so what I have a problem understanding is that why, if life was designed to begin at conception, why would the body be designed to end that life? And some of it are just, it's not because the embryo is necessarily bad. It just doesn't implant, and there are a variety of reasons for it. That's a weird thing for me, because, and that's where I have a hard time squaring the circle. That if the perception is it happens the moment the sperm fertilizes the egg, why then would the body be designed to end that life? Because it does, and it does on the regular.
So, for instance, like if there's bad genetic things that take place, sometimes the body just terminates that life naturally, right? That's your
again,
argument.
it doesn't always. It's not always because of bad genetics,
right?
It can be. It can be environmental.
It could be right, but it happens.
And if that embryo was placed into a test tube or somewhere else, it could be viable, and you might even be able to eventually get to fetus and baby. So these are viable pregnancies at time that your body eliminates. That's why I have a hard time squaring the circle with the idea of conception and the idea of where life begins. And again, we need to get back to the doctor, et cetera, and deal with that, because we're going into a philosophical argument and get back to where we plant the flag.
Standard fare for the Jeff
it
and
is.
Bill
It
show.
absolutely is. But that's the problem that I have with it, is the idea of when we look at the definition of conception. And what I worry about is that we are using our religious perceptions in order to make larger law. And
we do that all the time.
I know, but then don't complain when other religions come in and say, we want to have your society conform to our laws.
I'm not complaining. I'm just telling them they're wrong. And we can debate it. And we can come to a genuine, true understanding. So, from my perspective, Bill, responding to what you just said, just because something happens, heart attacks happen, things happen with the way our bodies are shaped, doesn't necessarily equate to what takes place with an abortion, where you have intent and you have human beings that step in and deliberately end that life that is developing, that has made it through. Whatever happens, sometimes, yes, the body naturally terminates a child. But that, in my mind, does not give justification to abortion, which is when another human being steps in and deliberately terminates. And it's like making the argument, well, because heart attacks happen, us committing murder is just the same thing, right? You end up with a dead human being. So can't we just commit murder?
But we have people that make the argument that because you suffered a heart attack because of your poor exercise or poor lifestyle, that's deserved and everything else. We have people that make that argument that the human choices are the result, and so there's some.
But we're talking about the other human being acting to end the human life,
right.
and essentially what you say is because we end up with two bodies, they're the same thing.
But hang on, I'm not aware of often where the person is kidnapped and the abortion is done against their will. the mother has to make the affirmative choice. So yes, the other human does come in, but the mother has to make the choice. And there's still that critique of the individual making the choice of the bad lifestyle or the addiction or the fill in the blank. And that's the result of it. We even have it with homelessness. We had good conversations yesterday, people texting in and calling in and talking about, well, these people are weak and they have failures and that's why they're homeless and we shouldn't support them and they should have to deal with it. And so the idea of the result of choices. So it's just a matter of what choices. I mean, it's
right, but it's a choice that kills another human being.
Again, but you're defining it as a human being at that point and not everybody agrees, including science.
But that's what we're talking about right now. Why? Just because someone disagrees doesn't negate the truth of it.
But again,
what is it? If it's not a human being, what is it?
It's an embryo. It's the idea that it's a developing body of cells that, if everything goes right, eventually can become a human, but that doesn't always happen. But again, and how and where it develops is, as far as course of time, that's what it is.
But we're all developing clumps of cells. I'm just a developing older clump of cells.
No, you're not. You're actually a dying clump of cells. You've crested over the
there
top.
We go.
Which
yeah,
you're going the other direction.
So there's more justification in that line of thinking for me to be dead. Because now I'm just a dying clump of cells instead of a developing clump of cells. I got less of a future.
Yeah.
And this is, again, if you cannot, as a medical professional, get clarity on this, and we are going to hand you the reins, as the Wall Street Journal says, to become a one-man death panel, likely the most powerful person in our federal government to determine life, death, access to drugs. And you not only don't support the sanctity of life, can't define when life begins, believes abortion is health care, you are rejecting Trump's policies of right to try, which should open up the federal government and testing and options to somebody that's just about to end their lives, give them one last shot. Why not try something? What do they have to lose? If you can't abide by that and believe in that, and you're Trump's top chief medical officer of the FDA, you're the wrong person for the job. This guy should have never been in there in the first place. He shouldn't be welcomed back. The Trump administration was right to let him go. All right, join the conversation. If you are not pro-life, should you be chief medical officer of the FDA? Does that automatically disqualify you?
Yeah, in the Trump administration.
Because it does absolutely for me. I think you can't get the basics right. I'm not going to trust you to make decisions, especially if it involves medication for preborn children.
Yeah, and I'll underline that if you can't get the scientific choice right based on a perception of religion, you can't be the scientist. It's kind of where we're going with this. So is that true? Is it that your religion needs to decide your science? Give us a call.
303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Law text line, 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Wake up, Denver. There's no better place to start your morning than IHOP, where the pancakes are fluffy, the coffee is hot, and the smiles are endless. Wednesday, August 27th. Join Jeff and Bill as they broadcast their show live from IHOP at 1595 South Colorado Boulevard in Denver. You're officially invited to be part of the excitement. Come grab your favorite breakfast and watch the Jeff and Bill Show in action from 6 to 10 a.m. Don't forget to try the special Jeff and Bill breakfast. Pancakes, any style eggs, and crispy bacon, all for just $7.10. It's a deal as good as their hot takes. All they need is you. Bring your appetite, bring your friends, and kick off your day with great food and great conversation. See you Wednesday, August 27th at IHOP.
Raskin is chief medical officer of the FDA under Trump. Wall Street Journal calling him more powerful than Anthony Fauci ever was at the National Institute of Health. And he's a radical lib. Wall Street Journal headlines, a Bernie Sanders acolyte and Maha drag. Believes in abortion. Calls it health care. And supports Democrats on abortion, which, let me remind you, is totally unrestricted at any point right up until the moment of birth for whatever reason, and taxpayers should pay for it. This guy should have never been in the Trump administration to begin with, and the idea that some want him back is ridiculous. Let's go to the phone lines. Joe Arvada. Good morning, Joe. You're on with Jeff and Bill.
Morning.
Well, good morning, Jeff, Billy. So I have an answer for you. And it won't take a large stretch for you guys to realize that my answer is Donald Trump should be able to put whoever he wants in. But that's not how I came to this. It's because of my belief, of course, and part of it goes back to what I have seen. And I was telling Billy about a story, and this is why every person should have a doctor that, yes, conforms to their beliefs. And there's many reasons for it. You might remember the movie Gifted Hands. The reason that and I'm blocking his name, Ben Carson, was able to heal those two women, or two conjoined twins, to separate them, was not because of his training, but because of his praying. And I believe that that's a case in medicine many times. The example I was giving, I have a pastor, and I'll go ahead and say his first name, Pastor Jake. He's a soccer coach in the summer, had a horrible injury on the field. And at first they thought, oh, well, it's just something in his hip or leg. And for a few hours, they didn't take him to the hospital. And then the next thing you know, the blood started cutting off in his leg. It happens in football once in a while. You'll hear about it, too, where the body does this thing, puts you in shock and cuts off the blood. And then at a certain point, it starts causing no blood to go into your feet, and the only thing they know what to do at a certain point is amputation. And so he's in the hospital, and they're telling him that it's going to be amputation. He says, no, I need a second opinion. I need another doctor. And so they get him another doctor, and he asks for a Christian doctor. And the doctor comes in, and after, sizing up the whole situation, he says, I don't know anything different than what they're saying, and I believe the best thing is probably amputation, but let's pray about it. And they sat on the bed, the hospital bed, and prayed together for an hour. And at the end of that hour, the doctor said, I know what to do. And they proceeded to go into surgery and did a miracle surgery that saved his leg. And he's just as normal as you can possibly imagine now. And the reason I tell you that story is because what your doctor believes is important. And the faith that you have is important. I mean, we all know that Jesus did healings.
Correct.
His faith was why he was able to heal. Is faith in Father God. And I believe that doctors are just emissaries of God. Really, yes, of course, they learn all the science. The science. They don't know after they learn the science, they have no idea what's going on. They'll all tell you that. It's like everything is a miracle.
Yeah.
And the more they learn, the more they realize there's a designer.
100%. That's how I feel too. Is the more you learn, especially about ranching, all this stuff, you're like, of course, there's a designer in all this. Great call, Joe. We've got You Choose the News coming up. Appreciate everybody giving us a call. What's that?
Doctor we were talking about didn't agree with that. Joe came to a conclusion on science, what the doctors think, and they think there's a big designer. But yet we have spent the last 40 minutes of the show lambasting this doctor. who has science, and he disagrees with you. Again,
right?
I think
He's wrong.
I think, I know, but,
and I think it's an intelligence issue.
Hang on, the issue. The issue is that Joe said, and I'm just critiquing, that once they find out more about the science and everything else,
correct,
then they see God in the work.
Designer.
Yet, that's not the critique we just had of the guy that you're talking about being more powerful than Fauci. He's been, but Joe said that's what happens, and here we have an example of it not happening.
Right, I know, and that should concern everybody. All right,
or
we got
maybe the conclusion's wrong.
Up.
Maybe the conclusion's incorrect.
You're
Just
listening
saying.
to the Jeff and Bill Show.
Denver's talk leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Great debate that you're not going to have anywhere else on any other station. Thank you to everybody that texted in,
Nobody else is going to touch
called
that.
in. The former chief medical officer of the FDA, a total lib through and through. Should he have been there? Thank you to everybody. Let's now give the people what they really want at this point of the show, which is Bill Thorpe and you choose the news.
Yes, it is that time of the morning where we get to play America's favorite fake radio news game show. You choose the news. We know how this works. Dumb stories I found on the interwebs, give them even more ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. Why would we do something this stupid and silly this early in the morning? Well, it's because those in charge have no idea what happens when we are left unsupervised. This is why when we go out on remote, they always send multiple people with us, because they've learned from experience. Hey, we're going to be out at the Taste of Douglas County soon. Come and see us there. Also at an IHOP coming up here in a couple of weeks. And notice the number of people they send with us. That's just because they keep us in line. Well, mostly me, just to be honest with y'all. Okay, now, here's how we go. We bring in Blake Olson because everybody needs a fall guy. I mean, another game show participant. And he joins us from the news department. Jeff Hunt is in the studio. Here are your headline choices this morning, gentlemen. Headline number 1, dipping their toes into marriage. Headline number 2, love or revenge. Headline number 3, check your face. And headline number 4, for educational purposes only. Mr. Hunt, your choice.
Check your face, please.
Yeah, check your face. That's the problem that Britain's most tattooed man is having right now. He said, this facial recognition stuff doesn't work on me, because my entire face is full of tattoos. Most of his body is covered with tattoos, but now facial recognition software does not recognize him, will not let him have access. And that is a travesty because, he says, how else am I going to watch my porn? Yes, the 45-year-old man from Birmingham has spent over 1,600 hours under the needle, but now his look is causing an issue accessing that sexy content. Yes, he says that the new porn filters that have been implemented in Britain don't recognize him without a mask. It keeps telling him to remove the mask, and he's like, I can't remove my face. I can't go all Nicolas Cage or John Travolta like in Face Off. What the hell am I supposed to do? Yes. How's a man? No, I can't say that. Every once in a while, there's a filter.
There are DVDs. I mean, it's like...
I know, but that's the old technology. He's looking for the new stuff. You know, he's looking for the newest
magazines.
Yeah, exactly.
He can put on his trench coat and go quietly to the shop.
Or, you know, the Cosmopolitan magazine, as all young kids did in the 80s. I'm just saying, there are things there. Okay, now.
National Geographic.
Yes. Blake, you're my man. All righty. Okay, Blake, your choice, sir. Dipping their toes into marriage, love or revenge, or for educational purposes only?
Dipping their toes into marriage.
Yeah, dipping their toes into marriage. Heather Schroning and Nick Phillips recently wanted to tie the knot. But weddings are expensive. Do you know the kind of money you got to spend on these things? That's why they entered a contest for a corporate-sponsored wedding. And they won. Yes, Unilever proudly sponsored their wedding, and the theme? Hellmann's mayonnaise. Recently, them and family members gathered in Las Vegas for a ceremony that was, yes, officiated by the Hellmann's Mayo mascot, Manny. He said, like a tender chicken dip and chicken tenders, marriage is a beautiful union of two special flavors that just work together. Yes, and the audience said, "Aw," when they eventually got to kiss. Yes, Hellmann's mayonnaise sponsored.
Were they a fat couple by chance?
No, they were very thin. And the thing is,
Really?
yeah, they won, and they won the contest. It was like one of 30 couples that won the contest. Yeah, they're actually quite skinny.
You'll
I saw
never
pictures.
guess who wrote about this.
Who?
Bon appetit.
Of course they did. Final choice this morning, Jeff, love or revenge, or for educational purposes only?
For educational purposes only.
Yes, for educational purposes only. We're going to make this You Choose the News very awkward today. Meta is saying, no. We didn't steal anything online. We didn't, and we certainly wouldn't steal porn. Well, one of the largest porn dealers on the internet says, yeah, you did. They're saying that Meta illegally downloaded at least 81 terabytes of the naughty stuff in order to teach their AI. They're going through a lawsuit right now, and Meta's just saying, well, we got to figure out what people do when the lights turn off. You know, that's what we got to do here. So, yes, Meta's being accused of stealing porn in order to train AI. It might, explain some of the answers you're getting on ChatGPT. Just saying. All righty. That's it. That's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you,
interesting
Jeff.
themes today. Thank you for that.
You have no idea the stories that don't make it. I'm just saying.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, you're listening to Jeff and Bill.
710 KNUS.